developer sync. Welcome. What has been happening since last time? Do I have anything general to say before we start? No, I don't think so. We are doing progress on all fronts, I think. So I think I'll just pass it to Mitch directly to talk about a little bit about the reward system process.
Yeah, well, that's been up for almost 2 weeks on the forum. Seems like there was lots of really good discussion about the outlining the forum post or the reward process description. It didn't seem like there was any critical feedback on it. I asked people like Jeff and Octopus to review it. So I think that seems good enough to go ahead with. I put in the roadmap to the first quant there as a comment. And yeah, that's pretty much my update from that point. Do you want me to pass it going or talk about that particularly, Christopher?
No, I think we just can conclude, like you were saying, that everyone has been given ample opportunity to comment on that. And if no more voices are raised, commenting, etc., we'll assume that we are good to proceed with that process, basically, and make that a closed issue. And then then let's move on to and I've spoken to Matteo about more clearly about taking on what you described in the roadmap of the actual things that needs to be done before the first quant and that Matteo can take the lead on those. So I'll pass to Matteo.
Yeah. Hello guys, how are you? Yeah, regarding that aspect, we already, for the first distribution, the first test distribution that we made months ago, we used an Aragon TEC drops DAO. So we don't necessarily have to use the same one, but we can start and set the first parameters for this new DAO with those parameters that we used at the moment. So I would say that besides getting all of the information from SourceCred and grabbing and setting how much everyone is going to be getting, we need to set the regular flow or process for each distribution. If it's going to be 2 months, every month, if it's going to be every 2 weeks, every week, etc. Who's gonna take charge on that? I am sure that I can take that lead. So I will begin. I was talking with Livy, and I think that I will make a more detailed document on that before I go next week, following the step number 5 on Mitch's post. So taking all of the experience that we already gathered on that test distribution from months ago, I think that we can do something better now. So yeah, it was a slow week for me, really busy with some other stuff on Givet, so couldn't give much time on that. I only could sync up with you, Christopher, and Livy, and that was pretty much it. But I will try, before I am gone next week, I'll try to leave this document and all the technical side ready for that, for at least the DAO and the spreadsheet on the distribution from SourceCred up to date for making a new test distribution before all the new ones. I'll pass it back to you, man.
Yeah, and to summarize it for you who don't have that roadmap fresh in your head, what needs to be done before the first quant is to set up this rewards committee. So like nominate and vote for the committee members. We need to amend the old SourceCred proposal and make sure that it covers the increased powers of this reward committee, power also over praise, not only over SourceCred.
Reward board.
So, sorry?
Reward board.
Reward board. Yeah. Can we? What do we all think about the reward board instead of the rewards DAO committee?
Too long.
Sounds
Too
like
long.
you have pasta in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a potato. You're eating a potato.
Whimsy
Reward board.
potato.
Yeah, we need to summarize, and we need to come up with those parameters and post that on the forum for some advice process, or snapshot vote. I guess that is up to be decided. How do we ratify? Do we ratify the params on us with the snapshot vote? Probably for the first time, for the first quant. And that's basically it. What we need to do before the first quant when it comes to this work stream. Yeah, and I'll pass it to Livy.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat the document. I can share my screen to show quick. I apologize I didn't do this earlier. It was super simple, but I was so swamped with so many things. So yeah, just answering this question. So who can praise? Anyone can praise. It's just requesting the praise powers to the stewards. And they can be retrieved in case of malicious action, like something that goes against our community covenant or code of conduct. And then what do we praise? What do we praise? So mostly subjective contributions, but also having in mind like the qualitative aspect of things. So because quality is something very subjective to each person, then it becomes like a subjective process. And in the description of subjective being something that is influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions. And then here are some examples that I collected in the praise chat of things that get mostly praised and that should continue to be praised. And then things we don't praise is more objective contributions in general, but things that will be captured by source cred already. So I linked to the list that Meech posted in this post here. So having an idea of everything that is captured by source cred will also help us to not praise that, and that awareness is going to come with time. And then here just some examples of things that we have been praising a lot, but that we should stop praising once source cred starts working better. And then this will change a little bit if we change the parameters of source cred. So these are things that will have to be always revisited and shared. And then how is a praise formulated? Just on Discord is this format, and on Telegram is a different format. And then just a quick hint to be specific, to avoid superlatives, and if we want to use superlatives, to give a quality point to it. So one bad example would be, oh, I praise all the work they did in this process. And then if still we want to go for something big, but giving a quality point would be, I praise the thoughtfulness they put in the details of this process, like adding emojis related to each topic of the agenda. This is not something that will ever be praised, I think, but just a dumb example that came to my mind. And then how quantification works. It's all in the post that we worked on it. And there are no categories for praise, but just the slide that we decided using. I saw that Mitch suggested to have just 5 points of this. I personally prefer having more because I think there are I think it is very granular, but we can debate that. And then some questions for quantifiers to have in mind is how much effort was put into this, what is the impact of this contribution, and how original unique is this contribution. And I think that was all needed. But I put in this document so if anyone wants to give feedback before I post in the forum, it's easier that way.
Cool. Thanks. No, that looks great. I think like just what we need. Yeah, and when it comes to the number of praise categories or the values you choose from, Octopus, he thought that maybe 7 numbers was a nice number. Mitch thought 5. Maybe, yeah, let's make that a part of the params debate or something before the first praise quant. For the actual system, it will be easy to adapt and which numbers we can put in. But of course, allowing for the 144 is that is a huge number compared. If we stop at 55, that is it's a totally different situation.
Yeah,
It's just with the reasoning behind boiling it down to those 5 points is because like the first half of the Fibonacci sequence is minuscule compared to the second half. So like I think it'll be less intuitive for people to use it. You know, if half of it is like actually a tiny fraction compared to the other half.
I would love to ask to the people that have been quantifying the most. So I quantified a lot, and for me particularly was interesting having that. Like sometimes there is something that just feels slightly more important than the other thing, and then there are things that are like, oh, that's huge, and then you want to jump until the end. But I would love to hear from Zaptimus and Juan that are in this call that quantified so much. Also Dan and Mateo.
Can you repeat the question?
Just if you think it's easier to, so am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
So here, those numbers, do you think it's better to have them just like that, like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, like to have the very little differences between them? Or would it be better to have like 2, 8, 34, 144, like have less options of numbers?
I'd like to have more, so you can, since the price is so subjective, like the more you have, the more detailed you can be. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, that was very interesting because even though there was a normalization of the numbers, there were people like that gave like 1 million, and other gave like from 1 to 100, and in the value of the praise. So I think like it's good to have like this framework, and maybe I agree with Septi to be able to have like a high cap, because sometimes there's just one praise that goes to a very important activity, and that we can have a high cap. Yeah, I also think that what I was reading in one of the first chapters, like I really think that people's feelings shouldn't be like thought biased per se. Like we should try to think that people is doing it the best way they can. I mean, I will try to explain myself. Even though that I like Livy, and like I like Septi, and I like the people who I relate the most in the community, that doesn't mean that I will give them better numbers just because of that. I think that the praise quantifiers should try to see on what is the contribution the people did rather than the people. But okay, I think
I
you already
think that's it.
taking out the names.
Yeah, I think that's a different question of being anonymous or not, but we're going for anonymous now, so the quantifiers wouldn't see the name. But I think we can open that debate maybe with get a group with all the quantifiers and have an advice process for that.
Can I
I think
ask
we
a
just
super basic
go ahead,
question?
MS.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off there.
Giver.
This is just for my own learning because I'm still pretty new to the space. But for the categories being chosen out of the Fibonacci sequence, is that manually set, or is that what the script will categorize things into?
Manually set. That
So
is yeah.
I don't know if it's helpful or not, but I actually, for story points with a lot of projects I work on, I was using a Fibonacci sequence with people on the team, and I had done a wider swath with a higher number. And over time, I found keeping it 1 through 5 is way easier for people who aren't as technical to categorize things into. Once I started to introduce like 21 and beyond, people weren't even really using it, and they just started kind of like almost like survey biasing, just picking what they think would make sense. But that 1 to 5 was a really sweet spot for me.
Yeah, actually, those story points was the inspiration for this. I think this is a slightly different scenario where you can easily, you can easily see that praising someone for writing this huge scientific report is a way bigger contribution than someone attending a meeting or doing some really small thing. So I think there really needs to be this, the really high number needs to be there, and categorizing the scientific report as a 5 when a retweet is a 1 is not, that does not sufficiently capture the increased value of the report.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think it's just the education for the individual on what they're selecting is going to be the biggest challenge that I've learned. And I didn't mean to cut off the thoughts there, by the way. I didn't mean to just hop in like that. But
no, this is exactly what we're using this meeting for. This.
I think we leave the Fibonacci sequence and let the reward board choose how they want to boil it down, or if they want to boil it down.
Yeah, I'd suggest that we make this part of the params debate, or not necessarily a debate, but at least an open process where we post the suggested params on the forum and have an advice process, and where we also include other stuff that we talked about. What did we talk about? I don't remember. Something that Levi said that we. It's about being anonymous or not, using pseudonyms. So we make that part of the debate as well. And when we're building the system, we'll make that a configurable option, so we can turn it on and off. And that way we can debate before the first quant if we want to use it or not, and have full community involvement. Unless we have something more to say about that, we'll move on to the backend. And Nagan, do you have information? What have you been up to? What are your plans? And
well, I've been doing some unit tests, and I have a basic Telegram bot running. It's not hooked up to the database yet because you're still discussing with Rudolf how that will look exactly. But at least it's kind of writing in Telegram, praise dished, and sending mock data. So that's it. And Rudolf gave me some feedback on the tests, which I'm going to implement. So it's going forward in that way. To that, I wanted to mention in Livia's document about the format of the praise. I think, and bye, I see you've joined now. I think we wanted to change that to the slash comments and not the exclamation mark comments. Just slight change in the format, but but maybe I write a comment in the document. And yeah, and the plan is just to continue, start maybe refine a bit the Telegram bot, maybe start with a Discord one, and yeah, I think you have to talk more to Rudolf about the actual backend database structure than I have, so I'll give it back to you there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and when it comes to the backend development, I was hoping that we would have come further today than we have, but there's good reasons for taking it a bit slow in the start. So me and Rudolf have been going back and forth about the data model, and it turns out it is not as simple as it first looks. There's some edge cases and some causes for it has to be designed. For instance, how do we handle things like duplicates? If one user marks a praise as a duplicate of another, and the second quantifier is also marks does the vice versa. So, for instance, I mark I quantify praise number 1, and I mark praise number 2 as a duplicate of number 1, and then quantifier number 2 does the opposite thing of quantifying praise number 2 and marking that the praise number 1 as a duplicate of number 2. What are the end results, and how do we handle those? So there are a lot of like edge cases and stuff like that, but I think we have solved most of them now. So I'd say the database, the data model is almost designed, and according to Rudolf,
can anyone else see a screen? Can you guys see a screen?
I see a red square.
Yeah, that's weird.
Mine's still loading.
Let me stop streaming. I wasn't showing anything just now other than the...
Sorry to cut you off. I wasn't sure if you were trying to show us something.
No, I wasn't showing anything. I was just showing the meeting notes.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
About what is this that you're thinking for the double praises? Like, how would that work?
No, I think we solved it this way, that we treat them completely separate. We don't. It doesn't matter if you are a quantifier and I am a quantifier. Which praise we mark as duplicates, it doesn't matter. When we do the calculation, the end result is still the same. We need to set a parameter for that, and the parameter will decide how much is a duplicate praise worth compared to the original. And most probably it's a straight percentage. So let's say a duplicate praise is worth 10% of the original. Then that is solved that way. Yeah, let me not get too technical on the details with the data model, but the data model isn't that big. We have done some modeling in Airtable with actual data to see that sort of the data fits into the model, and yeah, it seems like we have ironed it out mostly.
Yeah, just on that, just quickly on that topic of the double praise. I think the solution that we had thought before of just like having each quantifier quantifying one whole person at a time would solve this better than trying to codify a solution, because I feel like there are many layers to that like maybe each praise for the same thing has a different quality of what they are trying to express. And then maybe if you put a percentage, that could be super easily gamified. Like if people know that double praise receives a certain percentage automatically, then they could just like praise people for the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah, but at the same time, if they know that double praise are not worth anything at all, that would really deter people from praising. Because if someone has already praised for that thing, then they know that that contribution I made as doing the praise that wasn't worth anything at all.
But then if the quantifier has that view, then they could decide if something is valuable or not based on this like more
so you mean
cultural
that
understanding.
they wouldn't mark a praise as a duplicate at all, and they would just sort of adjust the numbers.
Yeah, because they would see like everything one person is being praised for, and then if one person received 10 praises and they're all for the same thing, like maybe that will have a different value than one person that was praised for different things all the way.
Let me move into the front end dev then. This is the wireframes I've made for the quantification screen. So this is a screen where one quantifier sees all the praise received by this pseudonymous character, Happy Salamander, for one praise period. So there's a list of praise, and there's a you do the quantification, and in this case you choose from the Fibonacci sequence. I cut this off at 34 just now, but I guess it will be longer again. It was longer before. And I've also included this marking of duplicate and also dismissing praise. I think dismissing praise, it was Tam that highlighted that we need to be able to dismiss a praise. So to be able to dismiss a praise where the information is it doesn't contain any praise information, or it's totally out of scope for the praise system somehow, just to mark it as this is not praise. But my idea was that we mark it as a duplicate, and then you say it's a duplicate of this praise. But now you're suggesting that we should not have the marking of duplicates at all, but instead, like in this scenario, you see that the two praise at the bottom, they refer to the same thing. So praise this user for doing all that hard work you did with the marketing campaign thing, and praise this user for working tirelessly with the marketing campaign. So it's referring to exactly the same thing. And without being able to mark the one as a duplicate, we would instead then adjust by how much we what value we give, what score we assign. Is that what you mean?
I see what you're doing. It feels good to have something to signal that is duplicate, actually. But then maybe it's not a set value that it receives.
Yeah, but then how would we determine the value if it's not a?
Maybe we could mark duplicate and choose a value. Because what if I want to give like 1 for something that is duplicate, but originally I gave 8?
Yeah.
I have a suggestion, maybe that we didn't talk about. So I like that being able to flag it as a duplicate, and I wonder, once it's flagged as a duplicate, is that something the reward board can look at? So they can see the duplicates and basically squish them, and then it takes an average?
Then that makes it really complicated. Because since different the praise from one praise receiver will be quantified by more than one quantifier. Those quantifiers can make mark different praise as being duplicates of they can mark duplicates in different ways. So when we try to squish everything together to one view, it will be difficult to determine which praise was a duplicate of which other praise. But when we look at it from the perspective of one quantifier, it's really easy, because it's your subjective opinion of which praise is the duplicate of which other. Did that make sense?
What about letting the quantifier, like you flag the duplicate, and then you let the quantifier decide, like if it's this task is like like sometimes people price stuff like twice, like maybe they praise it like before and then they praise it again on the community call, but then there's this other cases like when someone is praising someone and then other person is praising this person for the same thing. So yeah, it should have like different values, but this is a subjective thing. And what about letting the quantifiers decide, like, okay, we flag these are duplicated, and let the quantifier decide, maybe, just like to have like if many people listen praising this, it's because might be important. So yeah, we just flag it, but then we let the quantifier decide what he thinks this contribution is value for.
What do you mean we flag it though? I don't understand where that comes from.
I mean, maybe it's not the correct word, but the thing is, like, we let know the quantifier, like all the dupes, and for example, if we see,
But who's we? Who's we? I don't understand in the system.
It's not the bot telling you what they are like. What I'm seeing here is like, okay, I'm seeing an interface that says, okay, this praise is duplicated. So I don't know if it's a bot or.
He's saying we the quantifiers.
Yeah.
Okay. So we, the quantifiers, mark it as duplicate, and then the quantifiers do another thing? There's two different entities that you're trying to talk about, and they're not clear.
I thought like the duplicate system was like, it's the quantifiers who have to see like the duplicated. I mean, whoever has to do it, like, okay, we do it, and after that, the quantifiers decide. Like, I'm. So I was not fully understanding. Like I also Christopher mentioned before, like when we praise per people, like we see all the praises from one people and then we give a number, or it's like it was like, okay, yeah. So then when we see that people, we see all the countries that are duplicated, and we give a number according to that. But it's subjective.
I had a question. Is in this place data bootcamp, would we have like an anonymous ID for who's giving the praise or something like that? That way they would know like if two different people gave the same praise, or if it's the same person giving them praise. And I think since there's a duplication feature, that it doesn't remove the aspect of having praise there. So it's up to it. If we still have duplication, we're just flagging all the duplicates. We're still giving some consideration to what's being credited. So I think it's all entirely up to the whoever's uh, analyzing the places, whoever's quantifying, to give it a weight. And I think we should leave it up to them to decide if this praise gets more consideration if it's been reproduced many times. I don't think we should say that you necessarily need to do this. It's up to them.
Yeah, but it will lead to weird consequences if we imagine we have the praise score of 1 for like really small contributions, and if that is the smallest the smallest score you can give, if that is the smallest score you can give, if you have mark a praise as a duplicate and you need to select a number, then the lowest score you could select again is 1, which means that a small contribution being praised 2 times will get the double amount of praise, because it will get 1 and a 1. And I don't think that is the intention.
In this process, do we necessarily need to give a number for praises that we are marking as duplicate? Couldn't we just mark it as a duplicate and not quantify anything for it? Or maybe average out
the proposal I've made is to not to have to give it a number, but instead we set a percentage. So if you get praised for your scientific report and you get 144 in score for that, and then you have 10 people each praising that again, you will get 10% for new each repraise or out of that, which would lead you to in the end get the double amount, because not only was your contribution really important, but also like 10 other people said that it was really important. So then it, like super important.
That sounds good. And since Nagan mentioned that we are using we might be using slash commands for this. Could we maybe like give an option below the praise where like you could click a button and say +1 or something like that, and it just like somehow represents a weight for that praise in our model, or something like that?
We brought up like weighting praise in there, and it seemed like it became too subjective and too, I wouldn't say complicated, but like it takes away the spontaneity of praise if you have to quantify it right there.
And let's keep in mind now that what we are building is the MVP version of this system that we need to be done somewhere around the Commons upgrade, so to mid to end November. So let's try not to introduce so much new stuff, and unless it's really important things, and keep it simple and clean, and get it done on time. That, at least that's my opinion.
So do we have an MVP solution for this, or should we continue the discussion somewhere else?
Yeah, now that this was one detail, I just used this as an example why we had to spend some time on the data model design. But this is one of the things that we have been sort of debating. If we all think that this needs more debating, we'll continue to do that. We can continue that in the chat.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Last idea.
Right.
But go ahead.
Okay, thanks. It's just one quick question. Maybe I misunderstood something, but what do we have for the case where somebody mistakenly praised the same thing twice, but like the same person? Is it just dismiss, or can we also flag that as duplicate?
I'd say that is a dismiss.
Okay.
But that leads me to think that we should all probably include the from column again. I actually removed it today. It was there in this view, so you can see who did the praise, but using a pseudonym as well. But we'll bring that back because that probably adds it reveals that information, for instance.
What about using instead of let's say Livy, we say a random thing it's Livy, so you can see like it's this same name, but you cannot know it's Livy, and it should be random like for every press quant.
Have you guys seen the quantifier pseudonyms? You guys haven't seen this? I hear ViViV, and I hear now you're saying it. Like that was kind of outlined in the rewards post, where we would have pseudonyms for the praisor and the praisee. So I don't know if you guys are clear on that yet.
Oh no, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be some cool automatically generated pseudonyms.
Read the forum post.
You can add your names too.
I also had a question about the backend. Are we going to maybe lock the source of the praise? I think when we're doing audits, it could be really helpful if we like log where this praise came from, maybe like a Discord message link, or I don't know how Telegram identifies messages. Maybe we could log something like that, so whenever we're doing an audit, it's super smooth to see where this
We
praise
will
came from.
log everything that is loggable and potentially useful, like server ID, channel ID, whatever Telegram provides us with that we could use for analysis later on. Definitely. Sorry, now I'm doing stuff I don't need to do during this meeting.
Okay, my last idea about that, about the duplicates, was that they could have no value, the duplicates, but we have that information somewhere of how many phrases were duplicate of the same. Because you said we would have to inform like duplicate of what. So if that duplicate of what is communicated 10 times, let's say, like maybe that information would be useful in the analysis later to say that type of action. And then we can see like what types of actions were praised the most or the last. And then we'll have that information, but that doesn't need to have actual value for the quantification.
Yeah, and with the current proposal, that would be possible. We would only set that parameter to 0%. That the duplicates get 0%, and you have that. And of course, we would need to include that in the analysis, the information about like this praise have been marked has been duplicated by X amount of times. So, but let's move on to, we have already been discussing the front end. What I can say generally about the front end is that Red Casale is stepping in as front-end developer. He has been only at it for like 2 days, so he's still getting started with setting his environment up, etc. And I will continue, I guess, for a little while, also doing front end. And what is the status of front end is maybe this is not front end. This is my product manager stuff. The wireframes are basically done, I'd say, for the whole thing now. Maybe not to super detail, but enough to get us going with all the different screens. So the quantifier pool, where you add the community members that have expressed interest in being quantifiers. The quantification periods, where you start a new period. You can manually set the length of a period, for instance. So if it, if there's Christmas or a token launch or whatever, so some fixed date that we need to keep in mind, we can adjust the length of the coming period. Periods are manually administered, so you assign quantifiers to a period manually, or you have to press a button rather, but it is randomized who gets chosen out of the pool. We have to close the period manually, so an administrator can choose to close a period even though all quantifiers are not done, because we need to be able to move on even if people not deliver on their promise to do the quantification. Closing periods. We have this, of course, the my praise feature, where you can see the praise you get and get some overview over the different periods, how your total praise score has been over the different periods. And the quantification summary, where you see all the praise for that period with an average score. And the average score being an average. If there's three quantifiers quantifying a praise, then the average score is their total score divided by 3, basically. So it's really simple stuff. Quantification details. Yeah, and we have been looking at the quantifier screen, and basically that's it for the application. And Rad, he is doing the quantifier periods. He's starting with this screen, the quantifier period detailed screen, and I think I will be doing the quantifier pool screen next.
I reviewed your wireframes just before this meeting, Christopher, and so I just made some comments there in the orange sticky notes.
Nice.
Mostly around, I'm really not sure who the user is. You identify 3 personas, and I'm not really sure who the user is in that scenario.
Yeah.
And secondly, the wireframes, it doesn't really specify who is viewing it, like which persona is viewing each frame. No. Because obviously there's going to be some frames that only admins can see, and some frames only quantifiers can see. So I had a hard time with the flow with that in general.
That I totally understand, because I left that information out. Yeah, maybe I'll signify for each screen who gets to view that.
Yeah, my only thought here is that if there could be a point where we give, if the user is defined as anyone that is involved in the praise system, like receiving praise, maybe giving them too much information while the process is actually happening, like, might not be beneficial, you know? If they can see their praise being quantified in real time, I think like people might become obsessive or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. What do others think about that? That thought crossed my mind, but then it left my mind again. Now everything is quite open. So there's like admin features, and if you are a user, basically you can see everything, but you won't be able. Or my thought was let's keep it as open as possible with the radical transparency viewpoint. So let's let the user see everything, but if they're not an admin and not a quantifier, they won't be able to push some of the buttons, basically.
Yeah.
Our users.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really think like I prefer like the way that Christopher is saying, because like if it's like the good thing about open source is like anyone can see it. So if if something is gamifiable, like the community could or could not gamify it, but at the same time we can make it better, so we can improve it. And yeah, I really think it's better to get it open, and the more eyes on everything, it's always better, in my opinion.
I think it might be of value to maybe show them what praises they have. I'm not sure if we want to show everyone what. Maybe we can also show all of the praise, but I think maybe we should maybe not show the quantification numbers that they are getting or something like that. We could have that data still auditable, but we should probably hide them. Like if it's updating in real time, I think that can lead to slightly weird situations, or like lead to some sort of leaderboard obsession of sorts. We could have that data like auditable, but not on the website. In the website, it just displays like what's the share you got in this period or something like that. But updating in lifetime would be weird, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Just to add to both your points there, Livy added a point into the process, which is going to be analyze. So there will be a full report that will be transparent that comes at the end of each quant period. So we'll have full disclosure. But then to the second point, like if I'm a user and I'm trying to access stuff that's admin only, you might just end up with like UX issues of users not understanding why they can't push buttons, Be like, oh, why doesn't this work? And then like you're kind of like, oh, because you're not an admin. And then like, I don't know, you might just be making more overhead for yourself by having to explain this.
Yeah, point taken.
Also, I think a risk if we show during the process in real time who is getting what valuation, that would leave us open to somebody seeing something and reaching out to the person in the quantifier pool and trying to influence them. So I think it would be important to just have it closed during the process, and then afterwards, of course, full transparency, see everything.
Yeah, I think that those two are really valid points. So I'd say we make those adjustments if that seems like a general idea, that we make sure that the admin stuff is not viewable to people that are not admins, and praise data, the quantification data during an ongoing quantification is not shown for other than the people doing the actual quantification, of course.
But quantifiers could be anonymous too. They could have also pseudonyms just for this part.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll show the. Go ahead, Christopher.
No, as a quantifier, then you will only have access to the praise to be able to quantify praise for the praise receivers that you have been assigned for that specific period. So you won't see the work of the other quantifiers even.
I had a question regarding to this. I don't know if that's been discussed or not. So, for example, if there's a quantifier who has some confusion regarding some praise aspect, like what this praise actually means or what is this for, is there like a means for them to query that from maybe other quantifiers or from someone without getting it too influenced? For example, previously Griff used to be in the call, and like you could ask Griff if what this was. So could we have something similar but without having it influenceable in a way? I'm not sure like how exactly do we help people understand what XYZ praise is for?
Yeah.
That's a good point for very technical praise, because sometimes there would be like, oh, I praise person X for working on, and then a name that you never heard and a product that you don't know how it works. But I think that's why we're trying to be descriptive. So always adding like a quality or a way that you feel about how that was valuable. So that would inform the the quantifier. And then if the people that are praising fail to do that, then I think is, I don't know, if something is totally impossible to understand, maybe it should be dismissed.
I think
Or there could be a section for notes. I don't know.
Also, one easy way of allowing the quantifiers to help each other would be to have a Discord channel, quantification Discord channel. So no?
No,
Yeah,
I think that opens it up for collusion.
that can be set up. Like we could have a setup where you like DM a bot, and that bot sends a message to us, a server, a group, or something like that. Like that way, we have anonymity.
Yeah, but the risk of collusion always exists. It can because it's. I don't know if we want to keep the list of quantifiers secret, so that we don't even know who else is a quantifier. But if I find out that who else is quantifiers, I could always reach out to them through back channels. So having an open channel where quantifiers can actually ask each other like open questions, saying like, I totally don't understand what this is all about. Do someone know what this research paper is, or whatever? That at least gives us some. Yeah, then the collusion is out in the open at least.
I would love if we assume positive, if we just assume positive intentions and are based on trust. And then if problems happen, we have like a cultural apparatus to deal with them, rather than making everything so siloed and so like fear based.
It sounds like a kick the can down. Sorry, that was really scratchy. That sounds like a kick the can down the road solution.
I think one solution to this might be like we have an open channel, but no one can talk in that channel. So what you could do is like you use a command in DMs or something where you can ask a question and someone can answer the question via DMs, and all of that is viewable in a public Discord channel. So anyone in the community can audit that like this isn't influencing the other person in some way. It's again not the best user experience, but I think that's a way that we can have that. So for example, there's this channel called uh, praise discussion or praise information, and then there's a bot. You can DM the bot and you can say, you can use a command like question the ID of the praise, and you ask your question whatever it is, and someone in the server could just use a command called answer, give the ID for that particular phrase, and then have an answer written out over there. and then like the bot edits that message where it sent the question, and that it puts the answer below it, something like that.
Can I say something? I think maybe that would like following what YYV said. Maybe it's possible to make a bot. When you have a doubt about the praise, you can write to a bot which posts a message which is like praise clarifications, and that bot mentions the person who gave the praise, who is not anonymous, to clarify what they meant. So you say, I don't understand what you said here, and then the bot posts it, and the praise was public, so that person gets a mention in the Discord and can clarify, I meant that this paper does blah 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 blah, or this program does this. So the clarification is out in the open, so for everybody to see, and you don't have to reach out to other quantifiers. You don't have to know who the quantifiers are. You just have a way to anonymously contact the person that gave the praise, which you think is unclear.
I think we could do that. Uh, in the backend, I think we do store the ID of whoever's praising
Yes.
a certain person, but I don't know how this would work in Telegram. But for Discord, we could probably have this, like you can send the question to a bot, and the bot asks the question in a DM to that person who sent the praise. What did you mean by this? And then they could just answer it right there, and that gets released to you via DMs.
Yeah, DMs would also work.
I think that is a really good idea. I posted that as an idea for version X.X for future versions. It's really interesting, and I think going forward, I'd love to do more bot interactive functionality, like being able to opt into the quantifier pool by calling a bot command, using the bot for notifications, like a notification saying, yeah, the quantification period has started and you have been chosen to be a part of the quantifier, you have been chosen as a quantifier, etc. But we are past the top of the hour. Thank you all for participating. I think we got to the end of the agenda. I didn't have anything more to say about the front end.